They'd spoken around it, through it, past it, but never directly about those final moments when he'd slipped away despite all their love and care. But this, Ellen looked down at Lucy, and something shifted in her expression. The professional mask she'd worn since finding the baby began to crack, revealing the mother underneath. This is different. This baby needs more than love and good intentions, Sophie. She needs medical care, and her mother might need help too. Sophie felt her stomach drop. Her mother left her in a box. Mom, in the cold. How can you even think about... Yes, Ellen's voice was gentle now, tinged with an old pain that seemed to echo in the pre-dawn darkness. And I think I might know why. She shifted Lucy to one arm and pulled her phone from her scrub's pocket with trembling fingers. Remember how I said something happened at work tonight? A young girl came into the ER, 17, maybe 18. She'd just given birth, alone. She was scared, bleeding. We stabilized her. But when I went back to check on her, she was gone. Ellen's free hand brushed against Lucy's birthmark again, and suddenly she seemed far away, lost in a memory that played across her face like a shadow. I used to trace the same mark on another baby years ago. Her mother, Katie, was my best friend in nursing school. We were so young then, so sure we were going to change the world. Her voice took on a distant quality, as if she were speaking from somewhere deep in the past. We'd study together in her tiny apartment, taking turns holding baby Megan while we quizzed each other on medication dosages. Katie would always say, Ellen's voice caught. She'd say that birthmark was shaped like a heart if you looked at it right. She had such a way of finding beauty in small things. The memory seemed to physically pain her, and Sophie watched as her mother's professional composure cracked further. We had so many plans, Katie and I. We were going to open our own pediatric clinic someday, somewhere we could really help people. But then the prescription pills started. Just for her back pain at first, she said. Just to get through the long shifts. Ellen's voice broke, and she had to take a moment to compose herself. Lucy stirred in her arms, making a small sound that brought them both back to the present. Katie died of an overdose 5 years ago, and I lost touch with the family. I should have stayed in contact, should have checked on Megan, should have... She trailed off, shaking her head. When I saw Megan in the ER tonight, it was like seeing Katie's ghost. And now this baby, Lucy, you called her? She has her mother's birthmark, her grandmother's eyes. Sophie stared at her mother's phone, which displayed a hospital intake form with a photo. The girl in the picture was hardly more than a child herself, with dark circles under her eyes and fear written across her face. But there was something else there too. Something in the set of her jaw that reminded Sophie of the determination she sometimes caught in her own reflection. This is Megan? Ellen nodded, blinking back tears as she looked between the phone and the sleeping baby in her arms. When I saw her in the ER, I didn't make the connection at first. It's been so long, and she's grown so much. But then I saw the birthmark on her shoulder, identical to the one Lucy has, and it all came rushing back. All the promises I'd made to Katie about watching out for her daughter, all the ways I'd failed to keep them. Sophie felt the world tilting beneath her as the pieces began to fall into place. So you know who she is? Who they both are? Ellen nodded slowly, her nurse's hands automatically adjusting Lucy's blanket against the pre-dawn chill. The gesture was so familiar, the same way she used to tuck Tommy in, that it made Sophie's heart ache. And now I have a choice to make. The right thing, the legal thing, would be to take this baby to the hospital right now and call the authorities. She looked at Sophie, and for the first time since Tommy's death, Sophie saw something like her old fire in her mother's eyes. But maybe, just maybe, there's a way to do the right thing and the kind thing at the same time. Maybe this is our chance to break the cycle, to help both the mother and the child, the way I should have done for Katie and Megan. What do you mean? Ellen stood, cradling Lucy with the same careful tenderness she'd once shown Tommy. The morning light was growing stronger now, painting the room in shades of pearl and promise. Get your coat, Sophie. We are going to the hospital, but first we're going to make a stop. There's a shelter on Maple Street where a lot of scared young mothers end up. I have a feeling we might find Megan there. And then what? Sophie asked, already reaching for her coat. Her movements quickened by a hope she hadn't dared to feel in a long time. Then Ellen said, her voice firm but gentle, "We try to help them both. The way I should have done 5 years ago. The way we Mitchell women are supposed to do." She paused, looking out the window where the first hints of dawn were painting the sky in shades of possibility. Maybe it's time we all step out of the dark. Maybe it's time we remember that sometimes the best way to heal our own wounds is to help heal someone else's. Sophie reached for her coat, her hands steadier now. As she followed her mother and Lucy out of her room, she thought about choices, the ones we make in moments of fear or love, the ones we regret, and the ones that give us a chance to make things right again. She thought about Tommy, and how he would have loved the idea of helping a baby, of being part of something bigger than their grief. The night outside was still dark, but somewhere to the east, the sky was beginning to lighten, promising a new day and, perhaps, a chance at healing for all of them. As they stepped out into the pre-dawn air, Sophie noticed that the snow had stopped falling, leaving the world covered in a fresh blanket of white, clean, untouched, full of possibility. The streetlights were just beginning to flicker out as Ellen's Honda Civic wound through Boston's empty streets. Sophie sat in the back seat next to Lucy, who was secured in Tommy's old car seat, something Ellen had silently retrieved from the basement before they left. The plastic still smelled faintly of baby powder and that particular scent that had been uniquely Tommy's. "She's sleeping," Sophie whispered, her hand resting gently on Lucy's chest, feeling each tiny rise and fall. The baby's breath came in small puffs of warmth against the cold car interior. Ellen had cranked up the heat, but the winter chill still clung to the edges of the windows, creating delicate patterns of frost that caught the pre-dawn light. Ellen's eyes met Sophie's in the rearview mirror. "You've been doing this all night, haven't you?" Watching her breathe, there was something in her mother's voice, not quite approval, but understanding. Sophie nodded, remembering the long hours of vigilance. "I was afraid to sleep, afraid she'd need something and I wouldn't hear her." She paused, then added quietly, like with Tommy, at the end. Ellen's hands tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the black leather. "Sophie, we need to talk about that. About Tommy, and grief, and how it makes us do things we might not otherwise do." "Mom, let me finish, please." Ellen's voice was gentle but firm as she turned onto Maple Street. The shelter, a converted Victorian mansion with peeling paint and warmly lit windows, rose before them like a ghost in the gathering dawn. What happened with Tommy? It changed us both. Changed how we see the world, how we react to things. And sometimes that change makes us want to fix everything we see broken, to save everyone we can. She pulled into the shelter's small parking lot, killing the engine but making no move to get out. "But we can't save everyone, Sophie. And sometimes, trying to do it alone just makes things worse." "Is that what happened with Megan's mom?" Sophie asked, watching a light flick on in one of the shelter's upper windows. "With Katie?" Ellen was quiet for so long that Sophie thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with memory. She was like sunshine, always laughing, always seeing the best in people. Even when things were hard, and they were often hard, being a single mother in nursing school. She kept that light inside her. She took a shaky breath. But sometimes the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. I saw her struggling with the pain medication, saw how it was changing her, but I thought I could handle it alone. Thought I could save her myself. What happened? Life happened. Work happened. Tommy got sick, and I got distracted, and Katie slipped away, one prescription at a time. Ellen turned in her seat to face Sophie and Lucy. In the growing light, her face looked both younger and older than Sophie had ever seen it. "I've carried that guilt for years. But maybe that's not what Katie would have wanted. Maybe she would have wanted me to help her daughter instead of drowning in regret." Lucy stirred in her car seat, making a small sound that brought them both back to the present. Ellen reached back and touched the baby's cheek with infinite tenderness. "You know we have to tell the authorities eventually, right? About finding her." Sophie felt tears prick at her eyes. "I know, but can we try to help Megan first? Please, Before Ellen could answer, movement at the shelter's entrance caught their attention. A young girl in an oversized hoodie was slipping out the front door, her posture hunched against more than just the cold. Even from a distance, Sophie could see she was crying. "That's her," Ellen breathed, already opening her car door. "Stay here with Lucy." Sophie watched as her mother approached Megan with the same careful movements she used with frightened children at the hospital. Megan froze like a startled deer, one hand clutching the shelter's railing, the other pressed against her abdomen, a reflexive gesture that made Sophie's heart ache. The conversation that followed was too distant for Sophie to hear clearly, but she could read it in their body language, Ellen's open palms, Megan's rigid shoulders gradually softening. The moment when the young girl's composure finally broke and she collapsed into Ellen's arms. Lucy chose that moment to wake fully, her cry piercing the dawn quiet. Sophie saw Megan's head snap up, her whole body seeming to vibrate with recognition. Ellen glanced back at the car, then said something else to Megan, who nodded slowly. Together, they walked toward the car, their feet crunching on fresh snow. Sophie's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. This was the moment when everything could go wrong, or incredibly right. Ellen opened the car's back door, letting in a rush of cold air that made Lucy cry harder. Megan stood frozen, staring at the baby with an expression that Sophie would remember for the rest of her life. Terror and longing and love all mixed together, like watercolors bleeding into each other. "Can I?" Megan's voice cracked. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Can I hold her?" Sophie looked to her mother, who nodded almost imperceptibly. With shaking hands, Sophie unbuckled Lucy from the car seat and carefully passed her to Megan. The moment the baby settled into her mother's arms, her crying stopped, as if she somehow knew she was where she belonged. "I'm sorry," Megan whispered, pressing her face against Lucy's head. "I'm so sorry, baby girl. I was scared. I was so scared." She looked up at Ellen, her eyes swimming with tears. "I didn't know what to do. The baby's father. He's not. He wouldn't." She stopped, swallowing hard. "I thought if I left her somewhere safe, someone would find her. Someone better than me." "Someone did find her," Ellen said softly, placing a hand on Megan's shoulder. "But that doesn't mean you're not the someone she needs." Sophie watched as Megan's fingers traced the birthmark on Lucy's shoulder, the same mark that she and her mother shared, a legacy written in skin. "I remember Mom telling me about this mark," Megan said, her voice distant. "She said it meant I was special, that I was loved. But then she was gone and nothing felt special anymore." The sky was lightening rapidly now, the first true rays of sun painting the shelter's windows in shades of gold. A few early birds had begun their morning songs, their calls echoing off the empty streets like promises of a new day. "I know I messed up," Megan continued, gently swaying with Lucy. "I know I can't just fix everything, but I want to try. I want to be better than..." She trailed off, but Sophie could hear the unspoken words. "Better than my mother. Better than my choices. Better than my fears." Ellen took a deep breath, and Sophie recognized the look on her face. It was the same one she wore when making difficult decisions at the hospital, when weighing all the possible outcomes against what her heart told her was right. "Here's what we're going to do," Ellen said, her nurse's voice blending with something warmer, something more maternal. "First, we're all going to the hospital. Lucy needs to be checked out, and so do you, Megan. We'll have to report finding her. That's non-negotiable." "But..." She paused, making sure she had Megan's full attention. "But I'm going to tell them I know you, that I was friends with your mother. I'm going to advocate for you to keep custody, with support and supervision." Megan's eyes widened. "You do that? After what I did?" "What you did was wrong," Ellen said firmly. "But why you did it, that I understand. Sometimes we make desperate choices when we're scared and alone. The important thing is what we do next." "I don't have anywhere to go," Megan whispered. "The shelter's only temporary, and I can't..." "Yes, you do," Ellen interrupted. "You have my house. We have a spare room. It used to be my office, but it gets good morning light. Perfect for a nursery." She glanced at Sophie, whose heart was suddenly too big for her chest. That is, if Sophie agrees to help me turn it into one. Sophie felt tears spill down her cheeks. Really? They can stay with us? Ellen nodded. It won't be easy. There will be social workers and programs you'll need to attend, Megan. Parenting classes, counseling. You'll need to finish school. But you won't be doing it alone anymore. Lucy made a small cooing sound, and all three of them looked down at her. She was awake now, her dark eyes taking in their faces with that solemn newborn gaze that seemed to hold all the wisdom in the world. I want to do better, Megan said, her voice stronger now. For her. For myself. She looked at Ellen. For Mom. She always said you were the strongest person she knew. That you'd do anything to help someone who needed it. Ellen's composure cracked slightly. I didn't help her enough. But you're helping me now, Megan said softly. Maybe that's what matters most. The moment was broken by the sound of another car pulling into the shelter's parking lot. The early shift arriving. Ellen straightened up, her practical nature taking over. We should go, she said, already thinking ahead to the conversations and explanations that would need to be made at the hospital. Sophie, can you help Megan get Lucy back in the car seat? I need to make a few calls. As Ellen stepped away to pull out her phone, Sophie watched Megan carefully secure Lucy in the car seat, her movements uncertain but gentle. I've been calling her Lucy, Sophie admitted. I hope that's okay. Megan smiled, a small, wavering thing but real. Lucy, she tested the name. It's pretty. What made you choose it? Sophie told her about the wardrobe and the magical world beyond it, about finding something extraordinary in an ordinary place. As she spoke, she realized that maybe that's what they had all found in that alley. Not just a baby, but a chance to heal, to help, to become something more than their past pain. Ellen returned, her face determined. Dr. Martinez is expecting us in the ER. She's a friend. She'll help make this easier. She looked at all of them, Megan, Lucy, Sophie, and for the first time in years, Sophie saw her mother's smile reach her eyes. Ready? They were all quiet as Ellen started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. The sun was fully up now, turning the fresh snow into a blanket of diamonds. Sophie caught Megan's eye and saw her own hope reflected there, hope for Lucy, for themselves, for the family they might become. As they drove toward the hospital, Sophie thought about boxes. The ones we hide things in, the ones we try to fit ourselves into, the ones we sometimes need help climbing out of. She thought about Tommy, and how he would have loved being a sort of uncle to Lucy. Most of all, she thought about how sometimes the biggest acts of love start with the smallest choices, like a girl finding a baby in an alley, or a mother opening her heart to heal not just her own grief, but someone else's too. The morning traffic was beginning to pick up around them, the city coming alive with another day's possibilities. Lucy had drifted back to sleep, one tiny hand clutching Megan's finger through the straps of the car seat. In the rearview mirror, Sophie could see her mother's eyes, clear and focused on the road ahead, no longer haunted by the shadows of the past. They had a long day ahead of them, questions to answer, forms to fill out, explanations to give. But for now, in this moment between night and day, between what was and what could be, they were just four souls brought together by chance and choice, driving towards something that felt a lot like hope. 3 months later, Sophie stood in the doorway of what had once been her mother's home office, watching the early spring sunlight paint patterns on the newly painted mint green walls. The room had transformed completely since that cold January morning when they'd first brought Megan and Lucy home from the hospital. Gone were the filing cabinets and medical reference books, replaced by a white crib that Ellen had retrieved from their neighbor's garage sale, a comfortable rocking chair they'd found on Facebook Marketplace, and cheerful curtains that Megan had sewn herself in her new parenting class. She's finally asleep, Megan whispered, carefully extracting herself from the rocking chair where Lucy had just drifted off. At 3 months old, Lucy had grown into her features, her dark eyes now unmistakably like her mother's, her tiny fingers constantly reaching out to explore the world around her. The heart-shaped birthmark on her shoulder had become a point of pride rather than painful reminder, a symbol of the family legacy they were all working to reshape. Sophie watched as Megan tucked the blanket around Lucy with practiced care. The past months hadn't been easy, There had been social worker visits, mandatory counseling sessions, late-night feedings, and moments of doubt that had brought them all to tears. But there had also been laughter, small victories, and a growing sense of belonging that made their house feel like a home again. "You're getting really good at that," Sophie observed, noting how Megan had remembered to place Lucy's favorite stuffed rabbit, a gift from Mrs. Henderson, within reach but not too close to her face, just as the parenting book suggested. Megan smiled, the expression more natural now than it had been in those first uncertain weeks. "I had good teachers," she said, glancing at Sophie, "though I still can't believe you managed to take care of her alone for those 3 days. I can barely handle it with all the help I have now." Sophie felt her cheeks warm at the memory. "I was desperate," she admitted, "and scared, and probably a little crazy from grief. Like Mom says." She paused, running her hand along the crib's smooth railing. "But I think maybe we all needed a little crazy back then. Something to shake us out of where we were stuck." From downstairs came the sound of the front door opening, followed by Ellen's voice calling up, "Girls, I'm home, and I brought the paperwork." Sophie and Megan exchanged excited glances before hurrying downstairs, careful to avoid the squeaky step that could wake Lucy. They found Ellen in the kitchen, still in her scrubs, spreading official-looking documents across the counter, while a pot of her famous hot chocolate, a recipe that had become their family ritual for both celebrations and difficult conversations, simmered on the stove. "Well?" Megan asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Did they approve it?" Ellen's face broke into a smile that erased years of worry lines. "They did. The permanent guardianship arrangement has been approved. You and Lucy can stay here as long as you need, with me as your legal guardian until you turn 18. She pulled Megan into a tight hug. "You're stuck with us now, kiddo." Sophie watched as Megan melted into her mother's embrace, remembering how stiff and uncertain such touches had been in the beginning. Now they moved around each other with the easy familiarity of family, their rough edges smoothed by shared experiences and mutual understanding. "There's something else," Ellen said, pulling back to look at both girls. "I've been thinking about Tommy's college fund." She swallowed hard, and Sophie felt her heart skip a beat. They rarely spoke about the money they'd saved for Tommy's future, the dreams that had died with him. "I want to split it between you both. For your education." "Mom," Sophie started, but Ellen held up a hand. "Let me finish. Sophie, you've shown such maturity and compassion these past months. And Megan, your dedication to your GED classes while taking care of Lucy. I'm so proud of both of you. This money was meant to build a future, and that's exactly what it's going to do." Megan shook her head, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "I can't accept that. It's too much." "It's not enough," Ellen corrected gently. "But it's a start. You both deserve the chance to become whatever you want to be." She turned to stir the hot chocolate, her back straight and sure in a way Sophie hadn't seen since before Tommy's illness. Besides, Katie would have done the same for Sophie if our situations were reversed. The mention of Katie no longer brought the same sharp pain it once had. Instead, it felt like acknowledging another member of their unusual family, another thread in the tapestry they were weaving together. "Speaking of education," Sophie said, trying to lighten the moment, "I got an A on my essay about found family." She didn't mention that her teacher had cried while reading it, or that it had led to a class discussion about grief and healing that had left everyone a little more understanding of each other. "Of course you did," Megan laughed, wiping her eyes. "You lived it. We all did." Above them, Lucy's cry echoed through the baby monitor, not distressed, just announcing that her nap was over and she expected company. Before anyone could move, Mrs. Henderson's voice came through as well, singing a soft lullaby. Their elderly neighbor had become an honorary grandmother figure, often slipping over to give Megan breaks or share stories about raising her own children decades ago. "I'll go," Sophie offered, already heading for the stairs. "I want to show Lucy the daffodils that bloomed in the backyard today." As she climbed the stairs, she heard her mother and Megan's voices blend together in the kitchen below, discussing plans for Lucy's upcoming baptism. The sound wrapped around her like a warm blanket, so different from the hollow silence that had filled their house after Tommy died. In the nursery, Mrs. Henderson was already lifting Lucy from her crib, her weathered hands gentle and sure. "Perfect timing," she said, passing the baby to Sophie. "I think someone's ready for an adventure." Sophie carried Lucy to the window, pointing out the bright yellow flowers that had pushed through the last patches of snow in their backyard. "See those, Lucy? They're like you. They found a way to grow even when everything seemed cold and dark." Lucy reached toward the window with one chubby hand, her dark eyes wide with wonder at the colorful world outside. The afternoon sun caught her birthmark, and for a moment, Sophie could see what Katie had meant. It really did look like a heart when the light hit it just right. From downstairs came the sound of laughter, Ellen and Megan probably sharing another of their increasingly frequent jokes. Mrs. Henderson hummed contentedly as she straightened Lucy's blankets, and somewhere in the distance, a bird sang out a welcome to spring. Sophie held Lucy closer, breathing in her sweet baby scent. She thought about the box in the alley, about desperate choices and second chances, about how family isn't always what we're born into, but sometimes what we build together from the broken pieces of our hearts. "You know what, Lucy?" she whispered. "I think we all found exactly what we needed that night. We just didn't know it yet." Lucy responded with a happy gurgle, reaching up to pat Sophie's cheek with a tiny hand that seemed to promise that everything, somehow, was exactly as it should be. And in that moment, surrounded by the family they had pieced together from love and chance and choice, Sophie knew it was true.